NBA YoungBoy has several platinum albums, is the most streamed artist on YouTube, is the wealthiest young rapper, and is currently one of the most well-known rap artists. However, behind all of those figures and achievements, there is a 26-year-old man battling against odds that most people can't even fathom. Depression, trauma, faith, and the never-ending struggle to believe in God and feel as though God has abandoned him, as well as the struggle to live and wish to die. Here's the crazy part. In every interview and song, he tells us about it. He has been yelling for aid, but most people are too preoccupied with debating over his feuds to heed the sign. We're dissecting NBA YoungBoy's actual struggle today. Not with Dirk or the industry, but with himself, his troubles, and a God he persistently invokes, but occasionally feels isn't responding. This isn't about elevating suffering. Learn how one of the world's most famous musicians is also one of the most disturbed, and what can help a man who has been through a lot since he was a young boy. If you have been watching my channel, you're aware that I only share the facts. Let's get started. The source of suffering. We had to go back to the beginning in order to comprehend NBA YoungBoy's mental state. Louisiana's Baton Rouge. On October 20th, 1999, Kentrell Deshawn Gaulden was born, and life was difficult for Jump. When YoungBoy was a child, his father received a sentence of 55 years in prison. Not present on birthdays, not present to offer advice, simply absent. Family, that's the first wound. One of the riskiest things about growing up without your parents is American cities and his mother-child connection. Difficult. She battled her own problems. Who then reared him? His grandmother. The one individual who loved him without conditions. The one person who made an effort to correct him. However, there was bodily harm even prior to all of that. The youngster had to wear a skull brace after breaking his neck as a toddler. According to the physicians, it might have paralyzed him or worse. His forehead was permanently scarred by the brace. Scars that are visible today. Scars that serve as a daily reminder that he nearly failed. Take a moment to consider that. His body was harmed before he ever had memories. He was feeling agony before he could comprehend it. As a child growing up on 38th Street in Baton Rouge, YoungBoy witnessed a lot of violence, friends being shot, people dying, and was raised on the streets because the adults in his life were unable to do so. He already had the eyes of someone who had seen too much by the time he was a teenager. He left 9th grade at the age of 14, began robbing, and was arrested. This was no period of adolescent rebellion. It was survival mode. When you live in one of Louisiana's most dangerous neighborhoods, your mother is suffering, and you have no father. You must do what must be done. This is where it becomes more complex, though. The only person keeping him in check was his grandmother. When he was little, she died. Something inside of him was broken by that, and it never fully recovered. It's evident in his music. He keeps bringing her up, expresses the desire that she was still present. I'm wondering if she's unhappy with the man he turned into. He would lose his anchor if he lost her. It was him against the world after that. An adolescent living on the streets and hoping to succeed through music without any parental direction, a father figure, or a safety net. He wasn't the only victim of these early traumas. They had a profound impact on his worldview. Issues with attachment, trust, and the conviction that everyone will eventually abandon or betray you. We are working from that base. NBA YoungBoy faces the depression spiral and everything that follows through that prism. Thus, YoungBoy begins rapping in 2015 or 2016. His music is dismal right from the start. Street is not only nasty rhetoric, it's also real suffering, real depression, and real feelings of wanting to leave this place. However, his personal life is collapsing as his career takes off. He gets his first significant case in 2016, arrested for first-degree murder attempt. He eventually overcomes it, but as a teenager, he spends a lot of time in and out of jail. Every time his music gains traction, the law pulls him back. Then there was the shooting in Austin, Texas, in 2017. There were gunshots, injuries, additional legal issues, stress, and more paranoia. He's on probation even if he's blowing up by 2018. Unable to move freely. Unable to lead his life. The sadness is developing along with the celebrity. He's getting more followers, losing friends, and feeling more alone despite his financial success. His connections going public. They were in love, but it was poisonous Bonia. Social media records everything, including public altercations, splits, makeups, and fights. Floyd's daughter, Yaya Mayweather, then becomes involved. That becomes a mess. More tension was added after the stabbing incident and the legal turmoil. He is also having children throughout this time. He has several children with several women by 2020. He adores his children. That's evident. However, consider the pressure. He is barely in his 20s, juggling depression, trying to keep up a career, dealing with baby mother problems, and fighting criminal cases. Arrests continue to occur. He was imprisoned in Baton Rouge in 2020 on drug and handgun charges. Then he is picked up by the feds in LA. He is currently facing severe time in a federal prosecution. There are no longer any local fees. Federal prison is on the table here. From 2020 September to 2021 October, he is imprisoned. More than a year in prison. A cell and his ideas, no studio, no shows. Additionally, loneliness exacerbates depression if you already have it. Much worse. Upon his eventual release, he is placed under house arrest in Utah. His family, Louisiana, and all he knows are all far away. He's alone in his house, trying to keep his sanity and compose music. At this point, the music becomes quite ominous. Songs about wishing you weren't here. Songs that express the sense that everyone is against him. Lyrics in which he is essentially speaking to God, wondering why he must endure this kind of suffering and whether it would be simpler to die than to live. He is being blackballed by the industry. He won't play on the radio. Other artists won't cooperate with him because of the dark conflict. He is being ignored by award programs. He is being viewed as an outsider despite achieving figures that most musicians would only dream of. The suffering music is adored by many. It is streamed. They understand, yet no one inquires about his well-being. No one is examining his mental state. All they want is more songs about his pain. The depression spiral really takes hold at that point. When you're still in pain, even if you're earning millions from it. When you're the most streamed YouTuber and you're sitting by yourself in your home, not able to travel anywhere. No one can be trusted. Merely battling demons each night. Beat 3. The song is an appeal for assistance. This is when things start to get interesting. Because if you truly listen to NBA YoungBoy's music, not just feel the vibe, you'll see that he's been sharing with us the details of his life. Let's examine some of his most illuminating endeavors. In 2019, AI YoungBoy 2 was released. At this point, the despair begins to show in mellow songs like Self-Control, in which he talks about losing control of his emotions and feeling like he's going crazy. It doesn't make logical sense that he is doubting every aspect of his relationships and life. In 2020, just before he was imprisoned, Top came out. He talks of dying, being exhausted, and not knowing how long he can live in the introduction alone. At the age of 20, he creates music that reflects the experiences of a guy who has endured 50 years of hardship. Next, Sincerely, while still incarcerated, Kentrell drops in 2021. And fam, this might be his darkest project. In White Teeth, he discusses suicide in a straightforward manner. I consider killing myself, rather than in a symbolic manner. Nevada is his way of expressing his anguish of feeling alone in spite of having everything. One particularly striking song is I Hate Young Boy. He is enumerating all the people who have deceived him. He can't trust anyone, feeling as though everyone was against him. Rap lyrics aren't the only thing there. That is the talk of true depression, loneliness, and paranoia. In 2022, while he was under house arrest, colors emerged. More allusions to religion, more pleading with God, more questions about why he had to endure suffering, but also a greater understanding that this might be his life. The motifs are remarkably consistent throughout all of the projects. Suicidal thoughts, pain, betrayal, depression, doubting God, loneliness, and a desire for serenity, but an inability to achieve it. They enjoy it because they can relate to him, not because they wish for him to suffer. Millions of young people are coping with the same depressive symptoms, gloomy thoughts, and sense of isolation in a busy society. They feel seen when they hear YoungBoy. Here's the negative aspect of that, though. His fans stream it more when he exhibits greater agony. The more successful he becomes, the more his suffering has become his product, whether on purpose or not. His brand has become his sadness. Consider that pressure. You're feeling down. You turn it into a song. The song achieves platinum status. Your label is now requesting more painful music. Your followers want you to be more open, but repeatedly sharing your suffering doesn't make it better. That's just reopening the wound again and again. In interviews, YoungBoy has stated that he uses music to process his feelings. He uses it as treatment. However, therapy no longer exists when your therapy session doubles as your work, when millions of people are listening, and when your label requires you to be in that dark place in order to continue releasing hits. Exploitation is what that is. Additionally, the industry is well-versed in its operations. They will pressure him to abandon one endeavor after another. Little kid, give us more of that suffering. Fans adore it. It's selling. Ignore the possibility that the artist who created it is drowning. The anchor is religion. But here's what people miss in all the depression discourse. The NBA YoungBoy has a strong religious conviction. Not for show, not in a phony manner. He clings to his genuine faith like a lifeline. He makes frequent allusions to God in his discography, almost more than any other rapper. In his songs, he prays to God, asking for protection, forgiveness, and an explanation for why he had to endure so much. He wears crosses, discusses reading scripture, and makes references to the Bible in interviews. He can tell it's genuine. It's not a ploy. He claims in Lonely Child that he prays to God every day, confesses his mistakes, and asks God to forgive him, but that he needs God's help because he is powerless to rescue himself. If he is meant to be blessed, Blackball makes him wonder why God has put him through so much suffering, questioning whether God is punishing him or testing him. That right there is a theological battle. That's someone sincerely seeking to understand their purpose in all the misery. He is literally praying for his enemies, for protection, and for his children to grow up better than he did outside my window. It's not a superficial religion. That person thinks prayer has great power. The references to salvation, the cross tattoos, and the unwavering admission that he would be dead or permanently imprisoned if it weren't for God. It's not a performance. This young man is aware that something greater than himself has been watching over him. Here's the tension, though. And it's important to comprehend this. A young child finds himself torn between two worlds. Between his desire to be moral and being confined to circumstances that force him to use violence, between his faith and the streets. Between accepting God's purpose and wondering why it causes so much sorrow. Everywhere you look, that internal struggle is evident. He expresses gratitude to God for his benefits in one song. In the next, he is pleading with God to explain his depression. In another, he acknowledges that he knows God would disapprove of what he is doing, but he is unsure of how to quit. Additionally, there is proof that he has investigated several spiritual avenues. Some of his themes and visuals have Islamic overtones. Perhaps Christianity alone isn't providing him with what he needs, so he's searching for answers elsewhere and attempting to find spiritual grounding in a chaotic life. What you see is a person who is attempting valiantly to maintain their faith while leading a life that is incompatible with it. Someone who truly believes in God but leads a dangerous life and takes decisions that harm both others and themselves. Someone who can't stop the mayhem around him but prays for calm. Family, that's the fight. It's not only happiness versus depression. Faith and reality are at odds. It feels too far gone but still wants to be saved. The streets still have a hold on you, so even though you know God can help, you don't know how to completely give yourself over to that help. His anchor is religion. However, if you are in too deep of water, anchors might also pull you down. The conflict within. NBA YoungBoy is being pulled by all of these factors at once. His past, present, and uncertain future include depression, trauma, stardom, the streets, faith, legal issues, fatherhood, and the industry. And all of it leads to an internal conflict that manifests itself in public. Let's disentangle the paradoxes he is experiencing. Privacy against fame. Despite being one of the most well-known rappers in the world, he despises his fame. He repeatedly expressed his desire to simply be normal, but he is unable to change that. His family is fed by his celebrity. His career depends on his celebrity, but it also makes him a target and makes his every action is being watched, making private healing difficult. Spiritual development versus street repute. He is a homeless man. His credibility is that. His audience is that. However, the streets demand that you be tough, never show signs of weakness, and constantly be prepared for smoking. His spiritual path, meanwhile, calls for vulnerability, humility, and forgiveness. It is difficult for the two things to coexist. Loyalty in contrast to self-defense. He has a strong sense of loyalty to his people. However, his devotion has landed him into legal issues, kept him near bad individuals, and prevented him from severing ties with those who might be draining him. Loyalty eventually turns into self-destruction. Supplying as opposed to peace. He has more than 10 children, several baby mamas, pals that depend on him, and extended family. The need to continue earning money in order to support everyone is enormous. However, remaining in the spotlight, releasing songs frequently, and upholding an image are all necessary for rap artists to make money. That's not good for peace and mental wellness. Trust problems. This may be the most significant internal conflict. He can't rely on anyone. Any acquaintance could be phony. He may be the object of desire for any lady. Every business associate might be conspiring. Police officers are observing him. Street adversaries. Fans are even violating his privacy. He isolates as a result. However, loneliness exacerbates depression. However, it feels risky to invite them in. It's a cycle of losing. The cycle of violence. Friends, he has been shot at and involved in shootings. Trauma and PTSD result from that. However, he is constantly exposed to greater violence in his life. You cannot recover from trauma if you continue to live in the same surroundings that caused it. And because it is connected to his identity, his music, his credibility, love, and heartache, he is unable to fully leave that setting. He has a number of public connections. They always end badly. Each one exacerbates his problems with trust. They all become song material. Love is what he wants. It's evident in his music. However, he has no idea how to keep up good relationships. His lifestyle, his trauma, and the fact that he is still very young and did not have healthy role models as a child are all contributing factors. These paradoxes are not distinct problems. They're all connected. They feed into each other, create a cycle that's almost impossible to break without major life changes. And those major life changes feel impossible when you got so many people depending on you and so much at stake. Now, here's where it gets really dark. NBA YoungBoy has openly discussed suicidal thoughts, not in a casual way. That's not something to take lightly. When someone with that much influence, that many young fans, is expressing suicidal ideation, it's serious. And it raises the question, is the industry doing anything to help him? Are the people around him equipped to handle this? Or are they just trying to keep him functional enough to keep making money? Beat 6. Coping mechanisms. So, how does NBA YoungBoy deal with all this? What are his coping mechanisms, both healthy and unhealthy? Music as therapy. This is the big one. He drops music constantly, multiple projects a year, hundreds of songs. And he said that making music is how he processes his emotions. It's his therapy session. When he's angry, he makes a song about it. It's cathartic for him. But like I said earlier, when your therapy is also your product, that's complicated. Is he really healing, or is he just documenting his pain over and over? Isolation. When YoungBoy feels overwhelmed, he isolates. House arrest forced this. But even when he had freedom, he disappeared from social media, stopped doing interviews, just shut down. For someone with depression, isolation can be protective, keeping away from fake people, from industry politics, from drama. But it can also be dangerous because you're alone with your darkest thoughts. His children. This might be the healthiest coping mechanism he has. His kids give him a reason to keep going. He said multiple times that his children are what keep him alive. When he feels like giving up, he thinks about them growing up without a father like he did. That pain motivates him to stay. You see it in his social media when he's with his kids. Those are the only times he looks genuinely happy. Not performing, not pretending, just being a dad. That's real therapy right there. Religion and prayer, like we discussed, his faith is real. He studies the Bible, prays, and asks God for strength when he is at his lowest. If it's sincere, that's a healthy coping strategy, and he seems to be doing it honestly. Continue working. He is a compulsive worker. Releases music at a crazy pace. In the studio all the time. Passion is a part of that. While some of that is avoidance, some of it is therapy. You can avoid sitting with your thoughts if you keep yourself occupied. Your trauma doesn't need to be processed. You simply continue to. Shifting. Let's now discuss unhealthy coping strategies and possible substance abuse. It's known that he was detained on drug-related charges, but I'm not here to make careless assumptions. I can't say with certainty whether that's self-medication or recreational, but it's usual for persons with untreated depression to do so. In hip-hop, lean culture is very popular, and we've seen how it affected other musicians. Toxic partnerships. In partnerships, he consistently exhibits the same tendencies. Accompanies someone. It's intense. It crumbles. Drama in public. Disband. Reconcile sometimes. More drama. He continues this pattern despite the fact that it wears him out and increases his tension. That frequently indicates unresolved trauma and attachment problems. Remaining in dangerous situations. He didn't leave Baton Rouge even though he had the money to do so in order to get away from the streets and start again in a safe place. That includes loyalty. Authenticity and self-destructiveness are two aspects of that. You cannot recover in the same setting that caused you pain. Glorifying the suffering. He seems to use his trauma as armor at times. I've experienced more than you have. Your anguish is not as deep as mine. It's a defensive tactic. However, it also keeps you mired in victimization. You become so attached to your pain that you lose sight of who you are without it. Refusing assistance. There is no proof that YoungBoy has ever sought professional mental health therapy or seen a therapist. That isn't a verdict. Hip-hop culture stigmatizes therapy, particularly for guys. However, it is self-destructive to turn down assistance when you obviously need it. This is the truth. The NBA The Little Boy uses a combination of healthful and unhealthy ways of coping. On some days, he draws strength from his music, his children, and his beliefs. On other days, he may be spiraling, self-medicating, and isolating himself in unhealthy ways. That's the nasty reality of mental illness that goes untreated. The role of the industry. Let's now discuss a topic that individuals are reluctant to discuss. The contribution of the music industry to the mental health crisis among NBA young boys. A problematic artist is adored by the industry. Why? Due to pain, trauma, and struggle cells. Fans identify with darkness and vulnerability. Therefore, the industry perceives monetary indicators when an artist like YoungBoy's putting his actual suffering into his music. Labels want him to continue releasing more content, new music, and projects. Are you okay? Is not what they're asking. When's the next album? They inquire. He is blackballed by award shows and radio, which exacerbates his loneliness and misery. But because his supporters are so devoted, streaming services adore him. Therefore, such platforms have no reason to inquire about his well-being. They're making money as long as he is uploading music and receiving views. Because of the dark beef and industry politics, other musicians are unwilling to collaborate with him. His personal isolation is exacerbated by his professional isolation. Despite being one of the most well-known painters in existence, his contemporaries see him as an outsider. According to the media, he is troubled, dangerous, and problematic. His arrests, feuds, and baby mother turmoil are the main topics of discussion. They ignore the fact that he is a young man in need of assistance after experiencing severe trauma. Because disagreement generates clicks, that's all they want. And his supporters, I say this with affection because YoungBoy's fans are very devoted, but fan culture can occasionally be poisonous. The music of anguish is what they seek. They want him to continue falling from his hardships. In a strange way, they support his depression because they can connect to it. It happens, but not purposefully. Nobody in this ecosystem has a financial interest to put NBA YoungBoy's mental health ahead of his output, not even the fans, the label, the platform, or the media. That's the unpleasant reality. Take a look at what happened to M. Miller, Juice WLD, and numerous more musicians who are obviously having difficulties and creating music about it, but the industry continued to support them until their deaths. Then everyone acts like they give a damn. Next are posts that raise awareness of mental health issues. But when they were living and in pain, where was that energy? If nothing changes, YoungBoy is headed in the same direction. He claims to be suicidal. He claims to be depressed. He tells us that substance abuse is a problem for him. He tells us that he feels isolated. And the response from the industry is excellent. Included in a song, another album is required. That isn't assistance. Exploitation is what that is. Motivation from fatherhood. However, NBA YoungBoy is grounded because of one thing: his kids. YoungBoy, who is 25 years old, has more than 10 children with other women. That may seem reckless to others. However, it becomes clear that his children are the reason he does what he does. His father was absent from his upbringing. He is well aware of that suffering. He is adamant about not doing that to his own kids. Even while incarcerated under house arrest or facing legal issues, he never stops worrying about his children. He claimed in interviews that the only reason he is still alive is because of his children. When he has considered suicide, he is deterred by the prospect of kids growing up without a parent. That's strong, family. He was literally saved several times by his children. It's evident in the way he discusses them. The dread of failing them, the love, and the pride. Breaking generational curses is his goal. What he didn't have, he wants others to have. Stability, visibility, and defense. He works extremely hard and releases a lot of songs because he supports a large family. All children must be cared for. Every youngster is entitled to a happy life. He has a purpose despite the fact that the financial strain is severe. The only times he appears in pictures and videos are when he is with his children. Truly tranquil. Just being a father without acting tough or putting on a show. For him, that is healing in ways that money and music cannot. However, intricacy is also present here. Stress is a result of having so many children with many women. Making sure he's there for all of them while he's dealing with legal constraints, baby mother turmoil, and custody disputes. It's quite a bit. Fatherhood, however, roots him. In his life, it is the only thing that is pure. The one position where motivation isn't hampered by street notoriety or industry politics. He is merely a loving father.